4 years ago, I had zero construction experience. Today, I run my own glamping business, all from 2 domes that I built myself with no experience at all. In this video, I'm going to show you how I did it and how you can do it too. Hey guys, before we get into the episode, if there's any specific areas that you want to see and you want to go ahead and skip ahead, go ahead and check out the description below and take a look at all of the timestamps. All right, let's go ahead and get into the episode. Hey everybody, I'm Tom Williams, and in this first video, I'm going to go over how I ended up purchasing land and around Big Bend National Park, the reasons that I chose to buy there, and how much I was able to make off of my first project. So I first went to Big Bend National Park in 2018 on a father and son camping trip, and really just fell in love with the park and then the area. As I made more trips, it was really apparent that that area does not have enough short-term rentals for the amount of people that go there. Every year there's more and more tourists that go to the park, and it was what I saw was that it was a challenge to try to find places to book to go out there, especially in the peak season. And if you're trying to book, a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, even a month out or more. So also I was able to get to know people that work and live locally around the park, and I was hearing the same thing. So I would ask questions like, hey, just kind of note that I've tried to book out here and I just can't, that nothing's available. What's going on? And the feedback I would get is basically the same thing that I suspected, is that there just wasn't enough short-term rentals for the area. And there's a lot of reasons for that. One being that it is such a remote area. It's super remote. So you've got resources, you're restricted to the amount of people that you have out there available to work. There's less infrastructure out there, a lot of different things that I'll get into over time in this channel. And certainly if you guys have any questions as I go through this video, let me know below in the comments, and that'll give me an idea of what kind of things you guys are interested in for future content. Okay, so that's how I ended up deciding that I wanted to get land near Big Bend National Park. So basically it also met 3 criteria that I had. It was obvious that the demand was there, so that was one of the criteria. But also the land is really inexpensive out there, especially compared to other areas of the state. For example, the first property that I bought was a little over 20 acres, and it was a little over $1,000 per acre. In other areas of Texas, you can't even get close to that price. So that was kind of the second criteria, is the price of land out there. And then the third criteria was that there's no, I wanted to invest in an area that had limited restrictions, because I planned on building everything myself, and there's no permitting requirements out there. There is actually one. If you buy a 10-acre tract or smaller, you have to get some permitting if you do a septic system. But other than that, you don't have to worry about any permitting requirements. So that's a lot of red tape and time and money that you don't have to spend worrying about that. Okay, so I've built 2 domes out there on 2 different tracks. The first track, I'm going to talk about the numbers, okay? So I'm going to tell you guys how we did with our first 20-acre tract plus the dome. Okay, the first tract I bought in 2021, and it took a little over a year to build everything. I live out in Houston, Texas, so I had to make really long trips out there when I had time. And then one summer, whenever I actually finished it, I actually went out there and stayed a whole month to go ahead and get it done. So to talk about the seasons out there, the peak seasons are from October through the end of April, and you can get some bookings in September and also in May as well. So whenever I finished the first dome, I started renting in September, and then went all the way through basically the end of May for renting. And then once you get in the summer, really hardly anybody goes out there because it's so hot. Okay, so here's for the numbers on the first dome. So the land I purchased was $27,000, and then what I invested in building the dome was $34,000, and I tracked everything in QuickBooks. So anything I purchased, I went in there. So I know those numbers are accurate. So that gets to a total spend of $61,000. Now, during that first season, the revenue for the dome was $37,000, and then I ended up selling that tract of land. So whenever I initially purchased it, I planned on trying to scale it to have several units, but the property I ended up purchasing was extremely remote, extremely difficult to build on. So I knew I wasn't going to be able to scale it. So we ended up selling it, and we sold it for $110,000. So running the dome and the cells, there are some expenses for running the dome itself. Actually, it was really minimal. I had some subscription fees that I paid, but other than that, not much. And of course, selling a property, you have a commission to pay. But basically, the total after that first season with the revenue from rents plus selling it, it was around $147,000. Take away the expenses, that gave me $86,000. All right, if you guys are getting any value from this video, go ahead and hit the like button, and make sure that you stay to the end as well, because I'm also going to get into lessons learned and some of the things that you guys need to take into consideration if you decide to try to build something yourself. Okay, now I'm going to go over 3 different items. One is going to be my lessons learned from the first build, and I'm going to go over things that you need to invest in for building, and then how I got the skills that I needed to build out there. All right, so the biggest lessons learned was purchasing the land. If you guys are purchasing near Big Bend National Park, there's several brokerages out there that you can go to. A lot of them are really good. But one thing, whenever I purchased, it was during COVID, and a lot of people were purchasing, and I ended up purchasing the land. I saw some photos that weren't very good, and talking to the realtor, I was able to kind of see where it was located, and through conversation, it seemed to fit, what I was looking for as far as distance from the park. And so I ended up purchasing it sight unseen. And whenever I went out there, I realized that it was extremely remote. So from the highway, it took about 45 minutes on these ranch roads to get out there to the property, and they weren't all weather roads as well, so that made it a little more difficult. But lucky for me, that the property probably had one of the best views you could possibly have out in the region. It was spectacular. Okay, so it was really nice. And after I finished building, that was one thing that really attracted people whenever I posted the property on Airbnb. Another thing that helped me was the area and the type of people that it draws. Okay, so you get a lot of people that go out there, they want to go exploring in their 4x4 vehicles. You've got people that are into overlanding, things like that. So it also had that element of adventure, being able to use the off-road capabilities for a lot of the people that are traveling out there and are into that. But I really do feel that we got lucky. So if you guys are investing anywhere and purchasing land and you're wanting to build your own glamping site yourself, like I did, make sure that you don't do a sight unseen. Make sure you go there and you physically see it. It'll eliminate a lot of headache. I really, looking back on it, I would have purchased something different, because I wanted to purchase something that I'd be able to scale more. And this one, even though it was a cool property, it really was too remote. Okay, the second thing I'm going to go over is the tools that you purchase. Don't overinvest in tools. You would not believe how much work that you can do just by having a circular saw, a hammer, and a drill with the different attachments for screwing things in, bolting things. Just with those 3 things alone, you can build so much. So to me, if you're starting out, especially if you're you really need to follow a low budget, don't worry about investing in too much. The things that I would recommend purchasing is a circular saw, a cordless drill, and then a way to dig holes. So that'll depend on where you're purchasing land. Around Big Bend National Park, the ground is very rocky. So if you have really rocky land, then you may need, like me, I had to have a demolition hammer to actually, you've got to drill through all of that rock and then just by hand kind of pull it all out. But if you don't have really rocky soil, you'll want to get an auger. And you could do of course, if you don't have rocky land, a shovel, but you really want to build to work efficiently too. Another thing is a ladder, a speed square for, getting the angles for all of your cuts that you're doing, a pencil for marking, and a sander. Now, with the sander, if you or on an off-grid property, no access to electricity, just make sure that you're going to have to invest in a generator too. So you can pretty much go with battery powered everything, but whenever you go to sanding, you just can't get a lot of sanding done unless you can plug it into a generator. Okay, now I'm going to go into how I was able to learn, and it's all from YouTube. All right, so YouTube is such a huge asset if you're trying to take on this kind of project yourself and build your own glamping business. Some of the examples are like, just like I mentioned, the digging the holes. So I didn't know how I was going to dig through. It was basically all limestone, our first property. So I learned that I could get a demolition hammer and dig the post holes, which is what I did. Also, if you're building structures, so besides the dome, I had another structure for a shower and bathroom. So it's more traditional construction. I was able to find videos on how to basically build the deck, how to frame my walls, how to cut a bird's mouth for the rafters, for the roof. There's just so much information on there. So just make sure that you take advantage of that. And don't let not knowing how to build anything be the reason that you don't pursue it if this is something you really want to do, because really all the information's out there. So just focus on the work that you immediately have to do and then start doing your research and go ahead and get to it. All right, everybody, that's it for this first video. So I hope you guys found a lot of value. The biggest value will be following and making sure you turn on the notifications so you can get all of our episodes that come out. I'm going to take you guys along as we do our next builds. So not only will you be able to check out, not only can you go ahead and check out resources out there on YouTube for how to do things, you're going to be able to watch me do it as well. So that's going to be a huge benefit for you guys. All right, take care. I'll see you in the next episode.